Hello and welcome to Vision Economics Academy. Today we are starting the second chapter of Indian economic development. The chapter is Indian economy from 1950 to 1990. Imagine a newly independent nation, brimming with hope yet facing immense challenges. It was 1950. And India stood at the crossroad of history, recovering from nearly 2 centuries of colonial rule and striving to chart its own economic path. Would it follow the capitalist model of the West, embrace communism like the Soviet Union, or carve out its own unique approach? So this period from 1950 to 1990 was crucial in shaping India's economic foundation. As the country adopted 5-year plans, introduced state-led industrialization and aimed for self-sufficiency, key decisions determined its growth trajectory. However, these choices also brought challenges: low productivity, inefficient public sector enterprises, and the license Raj. So we will be discussing the planning era, industrial policies, green revolution and agriculture, and all the economic challenges and shortcomings. This particular this particular phase of Indian economic history is important because this phase of India's economic history helped us to see how past policies shaped the present. The economic reforms of 1991 were a response to the limitations of this era, making it essential for students to grasp the lesson from these 4 decades. Join us as we dive deep into this fascinating journey, analyzing key policies, their successes and their failures, and ultimately uncovering how India's early economic strategies set the stage for its modern transformation. All right. So after 200 years of exploitation, it was necessary to reconstruct the backward and stagnant Indian economy that the Britishers had left us with. Right? Now, before venturing into the economic history from the 4 decades, 1950 to 1990, we should know what an economic system is. An economic system is the way a nation organizes itself, right? For the production, distribution and consumption of goods and services. What type of economic system does a nation adopt for its economic processes of production, distribution and consumption? The 3 fundamental economic questions that arise, and we know it very well, is what to produce, how to produce and for whom to produce, and we have discussed this n number of times in class 11 syllabus and also in other videos as well. So there are basically 3 types of economic system: the capitalist system, the socialist system and the mixed economy. So capitalist economy basically means that the means of production is owned, controlled and operated by the private sector. So its objective is just the profit maximization. So how the central problems are solved in this economic system? What to produce? Goods that can be profitably sold in domestic or foreign markets. So what is produced? Goods that can be profitable and it can be sold to domestic or foreign markets. How to produce would be the cheapest technique, labor intensive or capital intensive, whatever is cost effective, that particular technique is chosen. And for whom to produce? It's based on the purchasing power and not the need. Okay? So, it rarely talks about the welfare of the people altogether. It mostly talks about how to amass more and more profit. And again, the distribution is not based on needs. It's based on the purchasing power. And oftentimes what happens is that capitalist economy will create the need for something that is not much required in our life. So we have had many examples of such products. Then comes the socialist economy or the planned economy. So the production is owned, controlled and operated by the government, and its objective is welfare of the society. What to produce, government decides based on what the society needs at that moment. How to produce, it's government itself will determine as to how do they produce. And for whom to produce is based on need and not on the purchasing power. Example, if there is a need of a free health care for all, that will be given, right? If there is no need of luxury cars, right, then that will not be produced. And the luxury cars will be produced in the capitalist economy because they are targeting the people who can purchase that. All right. Now comes the other type of economy, that is mixed economy. So both public and private sectors plays a crucial role in solving economic problems. How central problems are solved in this? So in this economy, it's a mix of both the capitalist and the socialist character. Here, both the public and private plays a significant role in solving the economic problem that has arisen. Government and private sector both decide what to produce. Private sector produces goods efficiently while the government intervenes whenever it's needed. So both of them play a crucial role and work complementing each other. Okay, so government and private both determines as to what to produce, how to produce. Private also produces, government also produces, government intervenes whenever it's necessary. And for whom to produce, the private would like to serve those people who can pay, that is keeping in mind the purchasing power of the people, and the government provides essential goods and services focusing on the welfare of the people. So India adopted a mixed economic system where we took the best part of both the system and merged into one for the benefit of our nation. The next part that we're talking about is the economic planning, which is a crucial part. Economic planning refers to making major economic decisions like what, how, and for whom to produce based on a comprehensive vision of the economy. That means nothing is done abruptly. There is a comprehensive, a well-planned vision of the economy, and the planning is done based on what is required to achieve that target. Basically, the objective of economic planning is to promote the growth, reduce poverty, and develop key sectors of the economy. So the objective of the planning was to promote the growth of the economy, reduce the poverty which was prevalent and develop key sectors of the economy which would help the economy to rise up from where the Britishers had left them, and that was absolute doldrums. India's approach after adopting a mixed economy was that it introduced 5-year plan, which is very important in the economic history or in the history of India itself. Now, the person that we are seeing here refers to P.C. Mahalanobis. He is also known as architect of the Indian economic planning, right? So he has made tremendous contribution. He has played a crucial role in designing India's 5-year plan. The second plan, that was on rapid industrialization, was based on his model, that is Mahalanobis model, and the first 5-year plan was based on Harrod-Domer model. Okay. The model emphasized that the Mahalanobis model emphasized development of heavy industries. Now, the heavy industries were thought to strengthen the Indian economy. Okay, so this model was basically based in strengthening the Indian economy through developing the heavy industries. He was also a government advisor, served as an honorary statistical advisor to the government of India, led ISI, Indian Statistical Institute, which is one of the premier institute in India, and contributed to data-driven policy decisions. All right. So in those days, he was the one who had a major contribution in making policy decisions based on data. Now, data till today, and especially in this day and age, plays a huge role in taking any decision, in understanding anything, right? So he contributed majorly in terms of data-driven policy decisions. So Mahalanobis model focused mainly on capital good industries because those are the heavy industries, aims to reduce India's dependence on foreign goods. As depend on foreign goods, then we could be easily manipulated. If you're too dependent on the foreign goods, we can be easily manipulated and our foreign reserves will be very low, right? So that is the reason why India needed to be self-sufficient and India needed to produce itself. So that is the reason why there was the vision of Mahalanobis to promote the heavy industries and produce everything in India. It encouraged long-term growth and self-sufficiency, which I've already talked about. So let us go to origin of 5-year plans. Of course, the 5-year plans in India was inspired by the model of economic planning of Soviet Union. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was a believer of socialistic economic system. So the first 5-year plan was launched by Pandit Nehru. That was in 1951. All right. So the Planning Commission was established in 1950 to formulate and implement 5-year plans. So this body, this institution, was established to oversee, to formulate the policies, to see whether it's being implemented or not. So there was a body, independent body, which had a task to formulate, to implement the 5-year plans, right? So the Planning Commission, which was established in 1950, okay, just remember this. And the first 5-year plan started from 1951, ended in 1956. Okay, so the features of 5-year plans were as such. We had a fixed time period. Each plan spanned over 5 years. Perspective planning, long-term plans spanning 20 years were formulated, and the 5-year plans acted as a short-term goals within them. So this 5-year plans, and there was perspective planning, that is for 20 years plan, and these 5-year plans were the building block towards achieving the perspective planning. Continuous assessment was done. Annual plans were introduced when 5-year plans faced disruptions during emergencies. There were numerous emergencies that came across. There was the war, there was national emergency, etc. Right? And in those days, annual plans was followed, and regular assessment of 5-year plans was done on a regular interval. In 2005, the Planning Commission was replaced by NITI Aayog, that is National Institution for Transforming India. The reason for replacement was to allow greater flexibility, as the Planning Commission was established in 1950. And fast forward to 2014, the dynamics of the world has changed, the dynamics of a country has changed. So they needed a new vision, a new formulation, and with that it was replaced by NITI Aayog. It was done to allow greater flexibility, decentralization, and real-time policy monitoring. So last 5-year plan was the 12th 5-year plan that was to be followed from 2012 to 2017, and thus NITI Aayog was born in the year 2015. There are some goals, basic goals of 5-year plan. The first is the growth, the second is the modernization, third is self-reliance, and the fourth is equity. Okay, all right, growth, modernization, self-reliance, and equity, or also GEMS: growth, equity, modernization, and self-reliance. All right. Let us understand what growth means. Growth basically means an increase in countries' capacity to produce goods and services. Our economy was in a very bad situation. We were in the doldrums. Our existing cotton textile industries was completely demolished by the Britishers. Our jute industries went during partition, and our primary goal was to increase the goods that was produced, goods and services that was produced in the country. And the economic indicators of growth would be expansion of productive capital, that is more factories, more machineries, more infrastructure to be built. So what are the indicators that would indicate that there is some sort of economic growth going on? So if an economy is having growth, right, having growth, the indicators of the economic growth will obviously be more innovative technology, more machineries, more better infrastructure, right? So all these are indicators of economic growth. Increase in service industries like transport and banking, and for transport you need another thing, that is the road connectivity, the highway. So improved efficiency of capital and labor. So all these are the economic indicators of growth, right? So you will be able to know if the economy has grown in terms of its infrastructure, its machineries, its factories, its services, and its efficiency in producing those goods. Then we can say that the country is progressing, there is a growth. And the key measure is gross domestic product. As we all know, it is the market value of all final goods and services produced in a year. Now GDP would be basically explained elaborately in the chapter national income, and I will surely share the link of it in the description box. You can go visit that and learn as to what GDP is and why we call it a market value. Okay, so higher GDP means better availability of goods and services and a higher standard of living. So that is also, higher GDP is also one of the indicators of growth. Then there is sectoral contribution to GDP. So GDP comes from three sectors, that is agriculture, industry and services. So by 1990s, the share of service sector increased to 40.59% more than agriculture. So it was more than agriculture. Before, during the 1950s, agriculture share was the most. So over the 4 decades, what happened is the service sector increased. This, however, indicate the structural transformation that came about and the impact of globalization after 1991. So that thing we'll be discussing in the next chapter. Okay. Modernization, again, the adoption of new technology, and not just in terms of new technology and new kind of machines that is used, but also India, as we have the history of orthodoxy, we had a history of inequality. The change in the social outlook was very necessary, and so the technological modernization, of course, was very necessary. Farmers, by using technologically advanced machinery, could increase their efficiency and output. Industries adopt automation to improve the efficiency of production. Then social modernization means to empower all the genders, to reform the education, and so modernization, in the words of draft outline of 6th plan, is diversification of economic activity. So modernization means you're not just focused in one activity, right? So you are reducing the risk of a possible economic collapse, because if you diversify the economic activity, if one or two things fail, there would be a chance of other one or two working good, right? So you are basically lowering the risk. So first is diversification of economic activity. Institutional and technological innovations. Obviously, innovation is a key part towards modernization and transition from colonial economy to an independent modern economy. So modernization, in the words of draft outline of the 6th plan, hints these points. Now the other point is self-reliance, reducing the dependencies on the foreign, post-independence. So India had just attained its independence, and it of course would want to minimize its dependency on foreign food supplies and capital. And the more we are dependent on it, the more we can be manipulated. So we avoided foreign interference. So the dependence on imported goods and loans could lead to external political influence. Of course, there are many countries which are small in the size and economy and are dependent on many other countries. Of course, their politics will be influenced hugely, and we did not want that. So that is the reason why we wanted to avoid the foreign interference. That is the reason why we were aiming for self-reliance. So the policies under self-reliance goal was increased domestic production of essential goods, import substitution, that is producing goods domestically rather than importing them. So under self-reliance goal, our goal was to increase the domestic production and substitute the import and start producing ourselves. And the last one is equity, which is different than equality. Equality would mean if a person is earning 1 lakh, a person is earning 1 crore, and a person is earning 1,000. giving them equal. So a person earning 1,000, 1 lakh or 1 crore is shared equally. So that is equality. What equity is? Equity basically means to rise everyone in the society up to the same level, ensuring that the economic growth, modernization and self-reliance benefit all sections of the society. Now it is to reduce, its objective was to reduce the income inequality, ensure equal distribution of wealth, provide basic necessaries like food, healthcare, education to all, and there are various measures taken by government to get for equity. Likewise, for example, subsidies was given for the poor in terms of food, in terms of housing, in terms of education. Reservation policies was followed in jobs and education, and which is still being followed today. And minimum wage laws was done also to protect the workers who could not fight for the right, who could not raise their voice. So all this was ensured in order to bring equity in the economy. So that's all for today. We'll continue with the introduction to agriculture in the post-independence in independent India. We have already discussed about the economic system. We have introduced the chapter, and we have also introduced the economic planning and its goals. So we'll continue in the next class. Till then, be safe, study well, and this is Sir Shivankar signing off. Thank you. Namaskar.